A deadly fungus is spreading among U.S. healthcare systems with no signs of slowing down. In fact, it's increasing by huge multiples. It's called Candida auris, or some people just say C. auris. It's a drug-resistant fungus that was first identified in the U.S. in 2016. But since then, the number of cases have increased very rapidly, jumping to 4,514 in 2024. So for more on this, we welcome in internist at Custom Care Medical, Dr. Frank Contachessa. Good morning, Frank.
Morning, Betsy. How are you?
Good to have you here. So the CDC has labeled this problem urgent, but my beef is that the CDC, which as I mentioned, I called the Centers for Disaster and Confusion, has done so little to stop the spread of this fungus from just a handful of hospitals in New York and New Jersey to now over half the states in the U.S. And one of the reasons is that when they issue a report about this fungus, they call the site of the fungus Hospital A. In other words, they won't tell the public which hospitals are struggling with this deadly fungus, which has a mortality rate of roughly 50%. Your thoughts?
Well, Betsy, that's true. And this is a rising concern. This particular fungus has actually doubled every year since 2016 from, as you said, a few dozen cases to now over 4,500. Just from a national point of view, nobody needs to panic at this point, because if you're healthy and you have contact with this fungus, your immune system is going to keep this in check. This is risk for hospitalized people and people in places like nursing homes and long care facilities. As for the reporting goes, it's unusual because we usually have to report. Hospitals get a report where you can actually look up that hospital and see what kind of infections have been spread in that hospital. So why they're doing that with this particular infection, I think it's because it's becoming resistant to a lot of treatments. So the concern is that, we have a limited number of medications to treat infections like this, and some of these strains are actually resistant to all of the drugs. So if you're immunocompromised and you get this infection, there's really very little we can do about it. And I think they're trying to avoid panic. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, who can say? But we should have a right to know what our hospitals are being infected with.
Well, that's right. In fact, in one case, a hospital in the Chicago area had an outbreak of C. auris in the neonatal intensive care unit. One baby died, 3 were sickened, but 1 died. Of course, any pregnant woman going into the hospital to give birth would want to know whether C. auris is rampaging through that hospital, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm hopeful. As you said, the CDC has lost a lot of faith in people after the way that COVID was handled. I know that I don't really trust what the CDC says anymore, but I hope that RFK Jr. will make some changes that will improve things, and I'm really hopeful for that.
I am too, and particularly that the CDC focuses on the much bigger problem of hospital infections overall, which kill 100,000 people in this country every year. That's more than from breast cancer and auto accidents combined, right? That should be a major focus of the CDC.
That's right. And, the population that you're talking about are at risk. So, we really should be taking the measures to do that, because infection control, a resistant infection like this, the only way to really combat it is to prevent it. So the hospitals that are having problems with this, we need to send in teams. They need to be taught how to properly disinfect, because this particular Candida auris can live on surfaces for weeks. And it can also be resistant to the typical disinfectants that are used to clean surfaces.
Right.
So if you can target those particular hospitals where, it's still very limited, we need to go in there and teach these people how to clean properly and do proper prevention.
I'm so glad you underscored that, because in fact there are new technologies such as dry hydrogen peroxide that can automatically, continuously, and non-toxically disinfect hospital rooms, including a kill rate against Candida auris well over 90%. So if hospitals install these systems in the HVAC, they can actually beat this nasty bug and the more common household infections like MRSA and C. diff that we hear about all the time.
You're absolutely right. And that technology is very exciting. Interestingly, an old patient of mine when I used to practice in New York was one of the inventors of that technology. But it is very exciting. This is something that you can actually attach, as you said, to the air conditioning system. that continuously puts out particles of ions, basically
Yes.
of peroxide, which can disinfect the air, go out and actually disinfect the surfaces without actually having to physically clean them. So that might be something hopeful on the horizon.
And for more information, come to hospitalinfection.org for all of the information on C. auris and other infections and how to protect yourself. Dr. Frank Contachessa, thank you so much.